Hello everyone, and welcome to my review of Spider-Man 2002, directed by Sam Raimi. Not only can I credit this film for being the first comic book movie I ever saw, but also my introduction to superheroes and comic books as a whole, and of course, my introduction to Spider-Man. Basically, in short, it started all things nerd and fandom for me. Now, I did not see this movie in theaters when it came out. I did not know about it, obviously. I had zero anticipation for it like so many other people did, until I found the VHS copy when I was wandering at a friend of my mother's house when I was about 7 years old, and I remember seeing on the counter this VHS copy of Spider-Man. And back then, I was deathly afraid of spiders. I still remember the nightmares to this day. When I saw the cover, I remember thinking, well, it is actually a person, and I was curious. So I asked if I could watch it, and even though there's spiders in it and some scary images, I never looked away, and I've loved this movie ever since. This is one of those movies that when I was a kid and I had to leave the house with family for a couple of days and I brought my portable DVD player, every single time I brought it with me, bringing this movie, this exact copy actually, was a requirement. I can also credit the video game for being the first video game that I ever played on a console. Memories. Now this is actually something that I want to do with my channel. If there is a background that I have with a specific movie or franchise that I want to talk about, I will do that, and I will talk about how I experienced the movie back then as best as I can remember, and I will talk about the movie how I see it today as my official review. I feel like it'll help my channel become more personable, and you guys can talk about your experiences with movies in the comments below. It's a recurring question I'll probably ask depending on the franchise. Before I get started, I just want to let you guys know that I did just make an introduction video to my channel. This is most likely your first time finding me, so welcome. I hope you choose to stick around by the end of this video. I will make sure to link it in the description below. And of course, thank you to all those who did watch my introduction video. I hope you stuck around. Now, I do have to give a spoiler warning for this video. If you've not seen this movie, please check it out. Now, if you made it this far, on with one of the best comic book origin films ever made. But first, of course, at the beginning, I have to bring up that amazing theme and intro for this movie. The intro for this movie was one of those things that I constantly had on repeat. I love how this looks. I love looking at all the text that's on there. I love the intro. I love the title shot. I love the whole thing. I mean, it's a great intro. This was my introduction to Danny Elfman. The first thing I noticed when I watch it today is the pacing. The pacing in this movie is damn near perfect. Peter gets bit. We immediately get the motivation for Norman testing the serum on himself, to Parker getting his spider powers, to Norman getting his Green Goblin powers, all within 25 minutes. And once the Macy Gray scene happens, the movie literally explodes. Now I gotta talk about the casting. This was my introduction to Tobey Maguire, Willem Dafoe, J.K. Simmons, Kirsten Dunst, and so on. Tobey Maguire was and will probably always be my Spider-Man, and I really enjoy the new version, I really do. I like the organic web shooters, even today, since the DNA screen earlier shows web tensile strength, so it also makes sense in that universe. I will always love this version of Spider-Man. Maybe that's biased, but there's really nothing more for me to say. Willem Dafoe as Green Goblin is the perfect example of someone being really passionate about a project, and you can see it when you watch them, especially when he talks to himself in the mirror. I love this transition.
So many good things all happening for you. All for you, Norman.
What do you want?
To say what you won't. To do what you can't.
I actually personally have not fan casted him as the Joker simply because I don't want a Green Goblin Joker. I think he's perfect as the Green Goblin. He doesn't need to be the Joker. He's damn good as the Green Goblin, which is like Spider-Man's Joker. So let's talk about the Green Goblin now. I actually still like the costume today. I don't think it really looks that bad, but this is easily my favorite shot of the mask. As for the Power Rangers comparison, I just never made that comparison. But behind the scenes show, they also wanted to make it look a little more mechanized to match the actual glider, which is a pretty good idea. I can't really see the Green Goblin's actual comic book mask on this bodysuit. They even suggested they wanted it to be some type of battle suit, some type of mechanized battle suit. I assume he just made the mask there afterwards as the Green Goblin. I do like the glider and how it does look like a mechanized bat. He's a damn good Spider-Man villain, and I see why he is a popular comic book villain. This is actually my favorite version of Mary Jane in the movies. I think she's written really well here as kind of a sympathetic character. Kirsten Dunst's performance is really strong here. And when they talk throughout the movie in the hospital, you can just tell that no one has made her feel that way before. Speaking on that, I really like the bits of dialogue that just make you understand why she falls for Peter at the end. And when she is falling to her death at the end, it's really effective even today. I'm not just looking at this movie as a movie that I loved when I was a kid. I'm actually analyzing this movie as an adult, and I think it still holds up really well. But the dialogue in this movie, it's one of those things you look at and you're like, someone wrote this dialogue. This scene is very innocent and cute, and not creepy at all. And of course, I have to talk about my introduction to J.K. Simmons as J. Jonah Jameson.
Who is Spider-Man? He's a criminal, that's who he is. A vigilante, a public menace. What's he doing on my front page?
Every time he says he doesn't want to be famous, now I'll make him infamous. I'm just like, yes, Jonah, yes, you will. J. Jonah Jameson and the Daily Bugle introduction here is perfect. But of course, if I'm talking about the casting, Rosemary Harris and Cliff Robertson as Uncle Ben and Aunt May, they were really good together. I really wish we got to see more of them on screen together. I remember when I first saw the Uncle Ben Gets Shot storyline and being like, oh shit, when it was revealed who actually did it. More on that later. That storyline will probably never be done better than it was in this movie. And I love the first time he swings through the air to catch Uncle Ben's killer. The CGI looks really good today, and that segues me into that next section. The CGI in this movie is a little bit more noticeable today, but it doesn't bog the movie down, and it's not like right in front of you, right in your face. It's a lot more in the background, and I think that really helps it. Plus, it still looks really good for 2002. I love watching him swing through the city. That's something I always wanted to do as a kid. Be able to swing through a city like Spider-Man, especially crawling up walls. This movie made me want to crawl up walls. I still remember trying to do it literally to this day. Yeah, I wasn't the brightest kid, was I? You don't get the fully rendered face/body CGI shit until the third movie, which we'll obviously talk about at some point soon. But it's really in the background more, and I watched this movie on 4K recently as the third time that I've watched it just in this past year, and it still looks really good. Now, before I talk about the rest of the movie, I absolutely have to talk about the little horror elements that Sam Raimi threw in here that no one really talks about that much today. Back then, I used to be scared of like literally everything, and even though there are jump scares in this movie and some frightening images, like I said earlier, I still did not look away from this movie. However, as an adult, I absolutely love horror movies. And having seen Sam Raimi's Evil Dead trilogy, I love the horror elements thrown in here even more. The jump scares got me, especially that last one. But as I said earlier, this movie literally explodes from the Macy Gray scene to the burning building scene to the finale of this movie. I enjoy every single fight in this movie, and that again speaks to the pacing of this movie, especially in the second half after the Green Goblin is introduced. I love this line. Out am I? The final fight is an awesome Spider-Man final fight. Now, I hadn't seen Batman Forever, so I had not already previously seen the choice that Green Goblin gives Spider-Man in this movie. But when Spider-Man saves both Mary Jane and the children, it was so heroic, and it was suspenseful the first time, and still is. It looks really good. I absolutely love the brutality of this scene. I absolutely love the slow motion effects and in-camera work. It really makes you feel the punches. I remember flinching and feeling the pain the first time I watched it. That shot of Peter when he looks up at Green Goblin after all the beating he just took. I remember feeling all of that in his face just by looking at it. It's awesome. I will talk about the ending to this fight. I really like the 180 here when he's talking to Peter.
I've been like a father to you. Be a son to me now. Godspeed, Spider-Man.
But when Norman Osborn died, I actually remember being extremely relieved about it, but the impact still looks really good today. When I first saw it, I was like, holy shit, as I saw him get speared, and I felt that pain too, even as a 7-year-old. Harry discovering the body at the end is perfect setup for what happens afterwards, and the movie sets it up by developing Harry and Norman's relationship. The movie and the end perfectly sets up Peter and the Harry conflict, and the Mary Jane and Peter Parker love story. When Mary Jane tells Peter that she loves him, it becomes so painful at the end. The dialogue here is just so strong. It really makes you feel for Peter when she says, I love you.
All I wanted was to tell her how much I loved her.
The movie's dialogue is just that strong, and when the movie ended, I absolutely loved it and immediately bought myself a copy. I've been a Spider-Man fan since, and the movie still really holds up after all of these years. Now yes, I do have one actual issue with this movie that I just can't help but notice every single time I watch it, and that is, how does Peter Parker not realize that Norman Osborn is the Green Goblin in that dinner scene? Norman has this weird reaction to your cut that no one else should suspect, immediately leaves the room, and what I'm assuming happens pretty much immediately afterwards is he attacks Aunt May, which I actually really like that scene sets up why Peter doesn't want to be with MJ at the end. I really like the fact that they added that storyline in there so that he would end up doing that. But that moment when he says,
He knows who I am.
I feel like it would have been just as effective if he figured out the Goblin's identity in that moment, because in the end Aunt May says everyone else knows. Well, Peter would still be able to make that MJ connection. So rewatching this movie today, every single time I watched it, which was actually 4 times. I said 3 earlier, but it's actually 4 times in the past year. Yes, I love this movie that much. And I just noticed it every single time. Please, let me know in the comments below what you think the reason is, because obviously Peter Parker is supposed to be a smart character, and they do establish that early on, but it just seems obvious to me. The other thing that I noticed when I watched this movie, and this one's really a nitpick. You could view the other one as a nitpick too, but like I said, with that issue. But I just want to know what's with the board members at Oscorp. Now I know this is a Spider-Man movie and not an Oscorp movie, but when you see this look on this guy's face, you feel like to yourself, these guys are sort of against him, or at least they're acting like it, and they don't really explain why. They do explain why the general at the beginning does not like him.
I'm going to be frank with you. I never supported your program. We have my predecessor to thank for that.
Not really anything for them, but it doesn't matter because that line of "out am I" is just perfect. But all in all, that's it. That is my review of Spider-Man 2002, my first official YouTube movie review on this channel. Some people say that Spider-Man isn't quippy enough. Now, obviously I didn't know Spider-Man was supposed to be quippy before I even first watched this. But now as an adult, the movie is so lighthearted and so fun. I mean, it's Spider-Man is something that's in this movie, and I feel like the lightheartedness of the movie adds to the quips that are in there a few times, and even doing so while having horror elements. I love the movie even as an adult, and it's one of the best comic book origin films that I have ever seen. Now, I'm not really sure if this is going to be my rating system throughout the rest of my history doing this, but as of right now, Spider-Man absolutely deserves a solid A. That is the first grade that I'm giving for my first review on this channel, but I have to. I absolutely love this film, like I said, and I really want to know what you guys think. The first Spider-Man movie that we ever got. Thank you, and have a great day. Please consider supporting my channel. I absolutely would appreciate it. If you were able to watch my introduction video, please do that. Again, it is linked in the description below. If you have a fond memory with this movie, please tell me what it is. I absolutely love hearing people's memories about movies. Thank you guys. Agent out.